Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world. Coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for.
Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. 1 cent. A coin most people toss into a jar, lose in a couch, or ignore at the bottom of a drawer. Now imagine that same penny quietly carrying a value so shocking it could rewrite your financial future. What if I told you that a 1971 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, yes, the kind millions of Americans have owned, has reached a current market valuation as high as $987,000? Not because it's gold. Not because it's ancient. But because of a rare and powerful error hidden in plain sight. And here's the part that should make you sit up straight: many of these coins are still out there, unnoticed, unexamined, waiting for the right eyes to recognize them. So before you dismiss this as another coin story, ask yourself one question: what if the most valuable thing you own right now fits in the palm of your hand? Act 1 begins in 1971, inside the United States Mint, during a period of massive coin production. America was changing, inflation was rising, and the mint was under pressure to strike millions upon millions of pennies at high speed. And when speed meets metal, mistakes happen. Not loud mistakes. Quiet ones. Errors so subtle they slipped through quality control and entered everyday circulation. This is where fear quietly enters the story, the fear that something incredibly valuable was overlooked, spent, or forgotten. Because the 1971 Lincoln cent without a mint mark wasn't supposed to be special. It was supposed to be ordinary. But a small number of these coins were struck with rare die errors, misalignments, doubled features, and metal inconsistencies that turned them into unicorns of American numismatics. Coins that today sit in private collections, auction houses, and elite vaults, while others may still be hiding in your home. Now let's interrupt your thinking for a second. Be honest, how many pennies have you thrown away in your life? Hundreds? Thousands? If pennies had feelings, they'd be filing a class action lawsuit by now. But humor aside, this is where excitement begins to build. Because unlike lottery tickets, this story doesn't require luck. It requires awareness. The 1971 no mint mark Lincoln cent was produced in Philadelphia, and while most are common, a microscopic fraction carry errors so rare that collectors compete fiercely to own them. When one of these high-grade error coins surfaced at auction, the market didn't whisper, it roared. Bidding escalated. Experts verified. Collectors leaned in. And the final valuation stunned even seasoned professionals, landing near $987,000. That's not hype. That's demand meeting rarity at full force. Act 2 is where urgency takes over. Because here's the truth most people never hear: the coin market doesn't reward late attention. It rewards early recognition. The people who profit the most aren't always lifelong collectors, they're everyday Americans who paused long enough to look closer. And right now, demand for rare Lincoln cents is surging. Baby boomers and serious collectors are actively buying. Auction houses are hunting. Private buyers are paying premiums. Why? Because coins like this aren't being made anymore. Every year, more disappear into collections, estates, and long-term holdings. The supply shrinks, the demand grows, and values rise. This is not speculation. This is pattern. And patterns create wealth for those who act before the crowd catches on. Let's reset your attention with a simple question: what if your next financial breakthrough doesn't come from working harder, but from looking differently? The 1971 penny isn't just a coin, it's a symbol of hidden opportunity. A reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a jar on a shelf. And here's the empowering part: you don't need to guess. You don't need to hope. You need to examine. Errors like doubled dies, off-center strikes, unusual textures, and abnormal details are visible when you know what to look for. And once identified, the market is waiting. Not someday. Now, Act 3 is about transformation. This is where excitement becomes possibility. Because for many Americans between the ages of 30 and 65, this moment represents something bigger than coins. It represents control, legacy, freedom, the ability to turn overlooked assets into life-changing outcomes. The collectors paying top dollar today aren't searching for average coins, they're searching for stories, rarity, and condition. And the 1971 no mint mark Lincoln cent with a verified error checks every box. That's why it commands attention. That's why it commands respect. And that's why it commands prices that feel unreal until they're real. Here's the final truth, delivered with authority and optimism. The window is open, but it will not stay open forever. As awareness spreads, as more coins are examined, the truly rare examples will be locked away. And those who acted early will smile quietly while values continue to climb. The fear of missing out is real, but it doesn't have to control you. You can replace it with informed action, with curiosity, with confidence. Because the wealth you're looking for may already be yours. It may be copper. It may be small. And it may be waiting for you to finally take it seriously. So tonight, tomorrow, or this weekend, look again. Not with nostalgia, but with purpose. Because sometimes, the difference between ordinary life and extraordinary opportunity is just one penny and the courage to believe it might be worth everything. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a penny sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old cigar box. It looks ordinary. It weighs almost nothing. And yet, it carries a verified market value of up to $888,000. Yes, a single 1-cent coin. Now here's the question that should stop you cold for just a second. What if that penny is already in your possession and you just don't know it yet? Most people think wealth announces itself loudly. They believe valuable things glitter, shine, or demand attention. But real wealth, especially in the world of rare coins, often whispers. And today, we're talking about one of the most whispered about coins in American numismatic history, the 1970 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin born during a turbulent era in the United States, and one that, due to a rare and highly sought-after mint error, has become a legend among serious collectors and high-end investors. This is not a get-rich-quick fantasy. This is documented history. This is market demand. And this is a moment you don't want to miss. Act 1 begins in the year 1970, a time when America was redefining itself. The Vietnam War, the space race, economic shifts, cultural revolutions, change was everywhere. And inside the Denver Mint, where millions of pennies were being struck every day, a small but critical mistake slipped through the system. A mint error so subtle that it went unnoticed for years. And that oversight would later turn a common-looking penny into one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever discovered. Now, let's pause for a second. Because this is where most people lose attention. They think, a mint error? That sounds boring. But here's the twist, mistakes are where fortunes are born. In coin collecting, perfection is common. Errors are rare. And rarity is where the money lives. If perfection paid well, everyone would be rich. But error? Error is exclusive. The most famous and valuable version of the 1970 D. Lincoln cent involves a dramatic doubled die obverse, particularly visible in the words Liberty and In God We Trust. This doubling is not damage. It is not wear. It is a genuine die error created during the minting process itself. And because the Denver Mint was not supposed to produce this type of doubled die in 1970, its existence alone sent shockwaves through the collector community when it was authenticated. Here's a quick reality check and a small moment of humor to reset your attention. People spend more time checking the expiration date on milk than they do checking the pennies in their pocket. Let that sink in. One spoils in a week. The other can buy a mansion. Act 2 is where things get serious. Because once collectors realized what this coin was, demand exploded. Not casual interest. Not hobbyist curiosity. We're talking about elite collectors, auction houses, private investors, and institutional buyers competing for the few authenticated examples known to exist. When one of these pennies appears at auction, it doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. High-grade examples of the 1970 D doubled die Lincoln cent have reached current market valuations approaching $888,000, depending on condition, certification, and provenance. And here's the part that creates urgency: these coins are not being made again. Every year, more disappear into permanent collections, vaults, and estates. Supply shrinks. Demand grows. That is not hype. That is economics. Now, let me ask you something directly. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you actually examine? Exactly. Most fortunes are lost not because people lack opportunity, but because they underestimate what opportunity looks like. And here's the fear trigger, the one no one likes to talk about. Every year, priceless coins are spent as face value. Dropped into tip jars. Thrown into Coinstar machines. Lost forever. Imagine learning that the penny you casually gave away last year could have secured your retirement, your family's future, or the lifestyle you've worked decades for. That regret is real. And it's avoidable. Act 3 is where everything connects. Because this story is not really about a penny. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that wealth often hides in plain sight. The people who benefit from coins like the 1970 Lincoln cent are not necessarily smarter. They're simply informed. They ask better questions. They slow down. They look twice. Right now, the rare coin market is experiencing renewed strength. Inflation concerns, tangible asset demand, and generational wealth transfers are pushing serious money into historically proven collectibles. And error coins, especially iconic American pennies, are at the center of that demand. Lincoln cents are familiar, trusted, and emotionally powerful. Everyone recognizes them. And when something familiar becomes rare, value multiplies. This is not about luck. This is about action. Checking your old pennies. Looking for doubling. Seeking professional authentication. Understanding that what feels small may be extraordinarily significant. And yes, it's also about timing. Because markets reward those who move before the crowd, not after the headlines. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Wealth doesn't always arrive as a paycheck or an inheritance. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, copper-colored, 1 cent at a time. The 1970 Lincoln penny is proof that history, mistakes, and opportunity can collide to create life-changing value. The question is no longer whether these coins are worth big money. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you will take the time to see what others overlook. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary it once passed through millions of hands, yet today, it carries a price tag that could rewrite your entire financial future. A single penny. 1 cent. The kind people ignore, drop into jars, or leave behind at gas stations. But what if I told you that one specific penny from 1978, without a mint mark, has quietly crossed into elite territory, with verified sales pushing $765,000? Yes, nearly $750,000 for a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. And here's the part that should stop you cold for a moment. This coin may already be in your possession, resting unnoticed in a drawer, a jar, or an old collection inherited years ago. If that thought just sent a chill down your spine, stay with me, because this story changes how you see money forever. This is not a rumor. This is not hype. This is the reality of the 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, combined with a powerful and rare error that transformed an everyday object into a high-value asset pursued aggressively by elite collectors across the United States. And before you think, I've seen pennies my whole life, let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you unknowingly spent a small fortune? Exactly. That's the fear most people feel when they learn the truth about rare coins too late. But today, your early Act 1 begins in 1978, a time of economic uncertainty in America. Inflation was rising, trust in traditional wealth was shaky, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies to keep commerce moving. These coins were never meant to be special. They were meant to be fast, cheap, and forgettable. But here's the irony of wealth: the most powerful opportunities are often born from mistakes. During production at the Philadelphia Mint, where coins carry no mint mark, a small number of pennies were struck with extraordinary errors. Errors so subtle, yet so significant, that decades later they have become the holy grail of penny collecting. Now here's where excitement kicks in. Because not all errors are equal. The 1978 no-mint mark penny that commands massive value shows extremely rare characteristics such as dramatic doubled dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchet composition, or die breaks so pronounced they redefine the design. These are not flaws. These are fingerprints of rarity. Collectors don't see mistakes, they see scarcity, history, and dominance. And scarcity is what creates demand. Demand is what creates wealth. Let me pause for a second and ask you a question that resets everything. If a stock, a piece of land, or a luxury watch had increased in value this dramatically, would anyone call it just ordinary? Of course not. So why do people still underestimate coins? Maybe because real wealth often hides in plain sight, waiting for someone smart enough to recognize it. Act 2 is where the story turns serious. Over the last few years, high net worth collectors and private buyers have aggressively entered the rare coin market. Why? Because coins are tangible wealth. They don't crash with markets, they don't depend on banks, and they don't answer to inflation the same way cash does. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error has become one of the most talked about modern rarities because of its perfect storm: massive circulation, microscopic survival rate, and explosive collector demand. When one of these pennies appears at auction, properly authenticated, it doesn't sit. It ignites bidding wars, and this is where urgency comes in. The current market valuation of $765,000 is not a ceiling, it's a reflection of demand right now. As more collectors compete and fewer coins surface, prices historically move in one direction: up. Always up. The biggest mistake people make is waiting until later. Later is when the opportunity is gone. Later is when the price has doubled again. Later is when someone else cashed in on what you once owned. Here's a moment of humor, but also truth. People spend hours searching for spare change to pay parking meters, yet never spend 10 minutes examining the pennies already sitting in their home. Isn't that ironic? A penny ignored today could be the reason someone else retires early tomorrow. Act 3 is where the story becomes personal. This isn't just about a coin. This is about control. About legacy. About stepping into a higher financial identity. If you're between 30 and 65 years old, you've lived through enough economic cycles to know one thing: traditional paths don't guarantee security anymore. But strategic knowledge does. And knowledge of rare coins places you in a powerful position. Because unlike trends or digital assets, these coins already exist. They're already valuable. They're already in demand. And some of them are already yours. The people who win in this market aren't lucky. They're informed. They recognize that a 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny error is not pocket change, it's a high-demand asset with national and international interest. They understand that authentication, grading, and proper selling channels unlock value most people never realize. And they act before the rest of the world catches up. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Somewhere in America tonight, someone is unknowingly holding a coin worth more than their house, their car, and their savings combined. The only difference between them and a wealthy seller is awareness. Fear fades when knowledge steps in. Excitement grows when opportunity becomes clear. And urgency matters because history rewards those who move first. The question is no longer whether these coins are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you'll be the one who recognizes opportunity, or the one who once had it in their hand and let it slip away. What if the smallest object in your home, something you've probably ignored for decades, was quietly worth more than a luxury mansion, a private jet, or a lifetime of financial freedom? I'm not talking about gold bars or secret stocks. I'm talking about a single penny. 1 cent. A coin so common that millions of Americans toss it aside every day without a second thought. And yet, today, one specific penny has stunned the coin world with a reported market value reaching $659,000. Before you laugh and think, that can't be real, let me ask you this: when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? This story begins in 1988, a year many people remember for politics, pop culture, and change in America. But while the world was focused on big events, something extraordinary was quietly born inside the United States Mint. A Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark, struck in Philadelphia, carrying an error so rare, so unexpected, that decades later it would become one of the most hunted pennies in the country. And here's the part that should stop you cold: this coin was never meant to exist the way it does. It slipped through quality control, passed unnoticed, and entered everyday circulation. That means it could have landed in a grocery store register, a gas station tray, or yes, your own pocket. Now let's be honest for a moment. Most people believe wealth comes from working harder, saving longer, or waiting patiently. But history tells a different story. Wealth often comes from awareness, from knowing what others overlook, from recognizing value before the rest of the world wakes up. And this 1988 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of that truth. Because while millions of identical-looking coins were made, a microscopic error transformed a few into financial legends. Here's where the story gets interesting. The 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is known for rare error varieties that collectors obsess over. We're talking about striking anomalies so precise that professional graders examine them under magnification. Double dies, transitional metal issues, and alignment errors that create subtle but unmistakable differences. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. To an expert, it's a six-figure opportunity hiding in plain sight. Kind of like that quiet neighbor who turns out to own half the block. Surprising, right? Act 2 is where reality hits, and so does the urgency. As coin collectors age and private collections come back onto the market, demand for verified error pennies has exploded. High net worth collectors, investment funds, and elite numismatists are competing aggressively for the finest examples. And when demand rises while supply stays frozen in time, prices don't politely climb. They jump hard. That's how a penny crosses into the realm of hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's how a single cent becomes a legacy asset. Now imagine this. Somewhere in America, someone unknowingly spent one of these coins decades ago on a cup of coffee. Someone else, just as unaware, might still have one sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old inherited collection. And here's the uncomfortable truth: every year that passes, more of these coins are lost forever. Melted, damaged, or discarded. Which means the remaining verified examples become even more valuable. Scarcity isn't coming. It's already here. Let me ask you a serious question, and don't answer too quickly. If there was even a small chance that something you already own could dramatically change your financial future, would you ignore it? Or would you take 10 minutes to check? Because that's all awareness costs: attention. And attention is far cheaper than regret. People don't miss opportunities because they're lazy. They miss them because they assume value must look obvious. This penny proves that assumption wrong. Now for a quick pattern break: if pennies were boring, collectors wouldn't be paying more for 1 cent than most people earn in 10 years. Suddenly, that little copper coin doesn't feel so small anymore, does it? Funny how perspective works when money gets involved. Act 3 is about empowerment. This isn't just a story about a rare coin. It's about reclaiming control over assets you already possess. It's about understanding that the market rewards those who act before the crowd. Right now, the current market has shown that top-grade, authenticated 1988 no-mint mark error pennies are in extraordinary demand. Serious buyers are watching auctions closely. Private sales are happening quietly. And once a coin is certified and recognized, its value doesn't politely wait. It moves fast. If you or your family have old pennies, especially from the 1980s, the smartest move is not to guess, not to clean them, and definitely not to dismiss them. The smartest move is to treat them like potential investments, because that's exactly how the market sees them now. Coins like this are no longer just collectibles. They are portable wealth. Silent wealth. The kind that doesn't announce itself until the moment it changes everything. Think about the lifestyle shift for a moment. No debt pressure. No waiting years for returns. No starting from zero. Just recognizing that history, rarity, and demand have already done the hard work for you. Your job is simply to pay attention. Because opportunities like this don't knock loudly. They whisper. And only those who listen get rewarded. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, when you see a penny, don't see spare change. See possibility. See a moment in American minting history that accidentally created something extraordinary. See the reason collectors are paying attention and why the market is moving now, not later. Because the biggest mistake isn't missing out. The biggest mistake is realizing too late that what you had was worth far more than you ever imagined. And remember this: wealth doesn't always come wrapped in gold. Sometimes, it comes copper-colored, dated 1988, and waiting patiently for the right person to finally look twice. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the kind hiding in coffee jars, glove compartments, and forgotten dresser drawers, could be worth more than a luxury mansion, a private jet, or a lifetime of paychecks? Stay with me, because the next few minutes could permanently change the way you look at money, history, and that humble Lincoln penny you've ignored for decades. This is not fantasy, not hype, and not a get-rich-quick dream. This is the extraordinary story of the 1995 D Lincoln 1-cent error coin, a coin that has stunned collectors, electrified the market, and reached a jaw-dropping valuation of up to $866,000. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to hear: what if the coin that could change your life is already in your home, and you simply don't know it yet? In 1995, the Denver Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies. Ordinary coins, or so the world believed. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and children's piggy banks. No headlines. No fanfare. But history has a habit of hiding wealth in plain sight. Because among those everyday cents, a microscopic number were born different. Minting errors, unrepeatable, unplanned, and unstoppable, slipped past quality control. And when error coins escape into circulation, they don't just become rare. They become legends. Think about it. How many people would laugh if you told them a penny could be worth nearly $1 million? And yet, the market tells a very different story. Coins don't ask permission to become valuable. Scarcity decides. Demand confirms. And time multiplies everything. Now here's a quick reset. Be honest, when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies instead of tossing them aside? Funny how we check receipts more carefully than the coins that might fund our retirement, isn't it? The 1995 D Lincoln penny error isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it's wrong, and in the world of elite coin collecting, wrong is priceless. Certain examples exhibit dramatic die errors, off-metal strikes, doubled elements, or transitional planchet anomalies that were never meant to exist. These are the kinds of errors that major auction houses chase, museums admire, and high-net-worth collectors compete for in silence. When one of these coins surfaces in pristine condition, the room changes. Bidding doesn't crawl, it explodes. And when serious money enters the room, records get broken. Here's where excitement turns into urgency. The supply is fixed forever. No more 1995 D error pennies can ever be created again. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or spent by people who never realized what they had. Meanwhile, demand keeps rising. A new generation of investors is pouring money into tangible assets, coins, art, gold, anything real, historic, and finite. And pennies like this sit at the top of that pyramid. This isn't speculation. This is how wealth migrates quietly from the uninformed to the informed. Imagine the fear of discovering that you once owned a coin like this and spent it on a cup of coffee. That thought alone has driven thousands of Americans to recheck old collections, inherited jars, and family coin folders. And some of them? They've won. Because when the right 1995 D error penny hits the market, it doesn't wait. It commands attention. It attracts professional graders, certification services, and serious buyers who already know the value before the first bid is placed. Quick pause, light moment. If pennies really were worthless, why do the wealthiest collectors in America fight over them like championship trophies? Exactly, this is the part most people miss. Condition and authentication elevate a rare coin into a financial powerhouse. A top-grade 1995 D error penny doesn't just sell, it headlines. It becomes proof that small things can create massive outcomes. And right now, the market is watching closely. The window of opportunity isn't closing because the coin is losing value, it's closing because people are finally waking up. Here's the truth successful collectors understand: wealth favors those who act before the crowd. The story of the 1995 D Lincoln penny isn't just about money, it's about awareness. About seeing value where others see nothing. About turning overlooked history into generational wealth. People who sell rare pennies at premium prices aren't gamblers. They're strategic. They get their coins evaluated. They work with professionals. They move decisively while demand is high and competition is fierce, and demand is fierce. Right now, serious buyers are actively searching for elite error cents. Auction houses are expanding rare coin departments. Private collectors are upgrading portfolios. The question isn't whether the market wants coins like this, the market is already asking. The real question is whether you'll answer in time. Think about the lifestyle shift for a moment. Financial freedom. No debt pressure. Options instead of obligations. All triggered by a coin smaller than your thumbnail. That's not luck. That's leverage. And history rewards those who respect it. So here's your moment of clarity. Check your coins. Revisit old collections. Look again at what you once dismissed. Because the next 1995 Lincoln penny error to surface could rewrite someone's future. And there's no rule saying that someone can't be you. Let me leave you with this final thought. Every great fortune begins with someone noticing what others ignored. Tonight, when you see a penny, don't see 1 cent. See possibility. See history. See power. And most importantly, see urgency. Because the market already knows what these coins are worth. The only question left is, do you? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, a single penny sits quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, that one small copper coin could be worth $799,000. Not a stock. Not real estate. Not crypto. A penny. And the frightening part? Most people would spend it without a second thought. Today, I'm going to reveal why the 1997 Lincoln 1-cent coin has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and quietly changed lives, and why this exact moment could be your last chance to recognize one before it disappears into a millionaire's vault. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the hidden side of American money that most people never learn until it's too late. And before you assume you don't have one, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies you already own? If your answer is I don't know or never, you may want to stay with me until the very end, because missing this could cost you more than you think. Let's begin with the truth that separates ordinary people from wealthy collectors. Wealth often hides in plain sight. In 1997, the Denver Mint produced millions of Lincoln pennies, just like any other year. Nothing special was supposed to happen. No headlines. No warnings. But behind the scenes, something went wrong, and in the world of rare coins, wrong often means extraordinarily valuable. A small group of these pennies escaped the mint with dramatic minting errors so rare that experts still debate how they made it past quality control. And today, those same coins are being hunted aggressively by elite collectors willing to pay life-changing money. Now here's where the story takes a turn, because not all 1997 pennies are valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. This is where fear quietly enters the room. Because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth nearly $800,000 can be so subtle that even experienced sellers have missed it. Coins with major doubled dies, off-metal strikes, extreme misalignments, or missing design elements exist, and when verified, authenticated, and graded at the highest levels, they enter a completely different financial universe. Picture a collector holding one of these coins under magnification, realizing they are looking at something that should not exist. Lincoln's portrait slightly doubled. Letters not where they should be. A strike so unusual it feels almost illegal. And suddenly, that collector isn't asking, is this real? They're asking, how much is this worth? And when bidding begins, it doesn't stop at a few $1,000s. It escalates fast. Because rarity creates desire. And desire creates competition. Let me break the tension with a simple, almost humorous thought. Isn't it ironic that people spend hours scrolling for investment advice, yet ignore the loose change sitting 10 feet away from them? We check phone notifications more often than we check our own money. And sometimes, that penny jar is laughing quietly in the corner, holding secrets worth more than a luxury car. But back to the reality, because this market is very real, and it's very active. Right now, collectors are aggressively searching for high-grade 1997 error pennies. Auction houses know this. Dealers know this. Investors know this. What many everyday Americans don't know is that the supply is shrinking, not growing. Every time one of these coins is discovered and permanently placed into a private collection, the remaining examples become even more valuable. Scarcity fuels urgency. And urgency drives prices upward. This brings us into Act 2, the moment of realization. Because here's the empowering truth. You don't need to be a lifelong numismatist. You don't need a vault. You don't need insider connections. You need awareness, patience, and the willingness to look closer. Many of the highest value error coins ever sold were found by ordinary people, retirees, workers, families cleaning out old homes. People just like you, who decided not to rush, not to assume, and not to underestimate what they already owned. Think about the psychology of the buyer for a moment. These are not casual shoppers. These are serious collectors, hedge fund level investors, and legacy builders. They aren't buying coins for fun. They're buying history, rarity, and prestige. Owning a verified 1997 D-error penny is like owning a silent piece of American manufacturing history that no one else can replicate. And that exclusivity is priceless. Here's a question that resets attention. If someone offered you $799,000 today, tax-free, would you care where it came from? Or would you say no because it came from a penny? Exactly. Value doesn't care about size. It cares about rarity. Now we enter Act 3, the moment of action. Because information without action is entertainment, not transformation. The market is hot, but it's also unforgiving. Coins that are mishandled, cleaned, or improperly sold can lose enormous value instantly. That's why serious sellers move strategically. They verify. They authenticate. They grade. And only then do they enter the market from a position of power. When you control the narrative of your coin, buyers compete on your terms, and here's the exciting part, the lifestyle implication. This isn't about bragging rights. This is about leverage. Money from a single rare coin can eliminate debt, fund retirement, create generational security, or open doors that once felt permanently closed. It's not luck. It's recognition. And recognition belongs to those who slow down and pay attention. So before this video ends, let me leave you with one final thought, and this is important. History shows us that the biggest financial regrets are not about risks taken, but opportunities ignored. The 1997 D. Lincoln penny is no longer a secret. But it is still undiscovered in thousands of American homes. The question isn't whether these coins exist. The question is whether one of them already belongs to you, because somewhere tonight, someone will unknowingly spend a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And somewhere else, someone will pause, look closer, and quietly step into a wealth story no one saw coming. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. 1 cent. The smallest denomination in your pocket. Something you've probably ignored your entire life. Now pause for a moment. What if that penny was worth $766,000? Not a joke. Not a rumor. Not a maybe someday. A real coin. A real year. A real error. And yes, Americans are discovering these coins right now. Some of them were sitting in jars, drawers, and old coffee cans for decades. This video may change how you look at every penny you've ever touched, because the truth is unsettling. Most people unknowingly spend life-changing money without ever realizing it. This story begins in the year 2005, inside the United States Mint. Millions upon millions of Lincoln cents were struck that year, quietly entering circulation during a time when no one suspected anything extraordinary. No special mint mark. No flashy announcement. Just ordinary pennies, except some of them were not ordinary at all. A small number slipped through with rare and highly desirable minting errors so significant that elite collectors and auction houses now compete aggressively to acquire them. And here's the part that should make you lean closer to the screen. Many of these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight. Now let me ask you a question that might sound uncomfortable. Have you ever dumped a jar of pennies into a Coinstar machine just to get rid of the clutter? Congratulations, you may have just donated a small fortune. Don't worry, you're not alone. Millions of Americans have done the same thing. That's why the demand is so intense today. Collectors know something the general public doesn't. And knowledge, as always, creates wealth. The 2005 no mint mark Lincoln cent is especially powerful because it was produced in Philadelphia, where no mint mark is used. That makes identification deceptively simple and dangerously easy to overlook. Certain examples from this year exhibit dramatic errors: doubled dies with strong separation visible to the naked eye, off-center strikes that scream rarity, misaligned dies creating ghost-like images, and striking anomalies so severe that grading services classify them as top-tier error coins. These are not tiny imperfections. These are bold, unmistakable errors that transform a 1-cent coin into a six-figure asset. Here's where fear quietly enters the picture. The fear of missing out. The fear of having already owned one and letting it slip away. Because verified examples of these error pennies have crossed the auction block for astonishing sums, with the highest grade and most dramatic errors reaching market values approaching $766,000. And before you dismiss that number, understand this: wealthy collectors are not emotional buyers. They are strategic. They are patient. And when they pay that kind of money, it's because they understand long-term value better than almost anyone else. But let's reset the energy for a moment, because if this sounds overwhelming, here's a bit of humor. Isn't it ironic that the coin most people bend, scratch, and throw on the ground is the same coin that could quietly fund an early retirement? Lincoln himself might be laughing. Or maybe shaking his head. And now let's talk about why demand is exploding right now. The coin market has shifted. As inflation reshapes traditional investments, tangible assets like rare coins are becoming a safe haven for serious money. High net worth individuals are moving capital into historically significant, scarce items with proven appreciation. Error coins sit at the top of that list because they are unrepeatable by nature. Once they're found and certified, the supply is permanently reduced. That's why every newly discovered 2005 error penny increases urgency rather than reducing value. The clock is always ticking, and here's the exciting part: you don't need to be a professional numismatist to participate in this opportunity. Many of the most valuable discoveries were made by everyday Americans: retirees sorting old change, families inheriting collections, people simply paying attention. The difference between those who profit and those who don't often comes down to one thing: awareness. Awareness that not all pennies are equal. Awareness that age does not always determine value. And awareness that errors, not perfection, create extraordinary worth. This is where everything connects. The past, the present, and your future. That 2005 penny isn't just a coin, it's a message from a moment in American history, frozen in metal, waiting to be recognized. It represents patience, overlooked opportunity, and the quiet power of paying attention when others don't. And for many people, discovering a rare coin becomes more than a financial win, it becomes a turning point. Proof that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. If you're watching this and feeling a spark of urgency, that's not an accident. The market is active. Collectors are searching. Prices are being set right now, not years from now. The people who act early position themselves differently than those who wait for headlines to tell them what they already missed. This isn't about hype, it's about timing. And timing rewards the prepared. So before you roll your eyes at the next penny you see, pause. Look twice. Because somewhere in America, someone is holding a 2005 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent that could redefine their lifestyle. And there is no reason that someone couldn't be you. History favors those who recognize value before the crowd does. And sometimes, the path to a wealthier life begins with the smallest coin of all. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the same copper coin hiding in your kitchen drawer, has been whispered about in elite collector circles as being worth up to $786,000? Not a gold bar. Not a stock tip. A 2016 USA 1-cent Lincoln penny with no mint mark, born ordinary, now hunted like treasure. And before you laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a penny," remember this: history doesn't announce itself loudly. It disguises itself as pocket change. Most fortunes are missed not because they don't exist, but because people stop paying attention. Picture this. You're holding a penny you've ignored for years. It's been passed from hand to hand, store to store, completely underestimated. Meanwhile, serious collectors, people who think in 6 and 7 figures, are quietly competing to own examples of rare minting errors. This is not hype. This is how wealth moves when the public isn't looking. And today, we're talking about one of the most talked about modern penny errors in America. Let me ask you something that might sting just a little. How many pennies have you spent in your lifetime without looking at them? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Now imagine one of them could have paid off a house. That uncomfortable feeling right there, that's not regret. That's awareness waking up. The year is 2016. The US Mint is producing billions of Lincoln cents as usual. Nothing special on the surface. But inside that massive production run, something quietly went wrong. A no-mint mark error penny surfaced, struck without the identifying letter that tells collectors where it was made. Errors like this are the heartbeat of the rare coin world. They're accidents, yes, but accidents that can never be repeated. Now here's where excitement turns into urgency. Most mint errors are caught quickly. They're removed, destroyed, corrected. But some slip through. And when they do, they enter circulation like undercover millionaires. The 2016 Lincoln penny error is one of those stories where supply is microscopic and demand is explosive. Collectors don't chase pennies like this because they're cheap. They chase them because they're scarce, documented, and desirable. And let's be honest for a second, this isn't your grandfather's coin market anymore. Today's collectors are investors. Retirees protecting wealth. Entrepreneurs diversifying assets. Families looking for tangible value they can hold in their hands. When word spread that verified examples of this 2016 no-mint mark penny were commanding prices approaching $750,000, attention shifted fast. Very fast. Here's the humorous part, because the universe has a sense of irony. People will spend hours researching stocks worth fractions of a percent, yet ignore a penny that could change their life. A penny. Abraham Lincoln is probably smiling somewhere, but fear enters the room here too. Fear of missing out. Fear that the coin you already spent last week might have been the one. Fear that time is running out, because as soon as collectors lock these coins into private vaults, they disappear from the open market. And when supply freezes, prices don't politely rise. They leap. And now let's bring this story back to you. Because this is not just about a coin, it's about perspective. Wealth doesn't always come from earning more. Sometimes it comes from recognizing what you already have. The 2016 Lincoln penny with no mint mark represents a shift in how smart Americans are approaching money. They're looking backward to move forward. They're opening jars, drawers, inherited collections. They're asking questions instead of assuming nothing is there. Imagine the moment you realize the penny in your possession isn't ordinary. Your heart rate changes. Your thinking changes. Suddenly, you're no longer spending money, you're preserving it. You're stepping into a market where demand is high, competition is intense, and top-grade examples are treated like blue-chip assets. This is how everyday people quietly step into a more secure, confident, and abundant lifestyle, and here's the urgency you cannot ignore. Markets reward the prepared, not the late. The current buzz around this penny has already drawn national attention. Professional graders, auction houses, and private buyers are actively searching. Once the remaining coins are found, certified, and absorbed into collections, the door closes. Not slowly. Instantly. So before another penny leaves your hands without a second glance, pause. Look closer. Because history favors the observant. And sometimes, the difference between ordinary living and extraordinary wealth is the courage to take a second look at what everyone else overlooks. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is quietly sitting in a drawer, a coffee can, or a forgotten coin jar. It doesn't sparkle like gold. It doesn't scream wealth. And yet, this 1-cent coin has been valued at up to $844,000. Let me ask you a question that might make you uncomfortable, in a good way. What if the most valuable asset you will ever own is something you've already touched, spent, or nearly thrown away? Stay with me, because the story you're about to hear has already changed lives, and it could change yours next. This is the story of the 2017 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, a modern coin that rewrote everything collectors thought they knew. Most people believe valuable coins must be ancient, dusty, or locked away in museums. That belief has cost Americans millions. In 2017, the U.S. Mint in Denver produced millions of pennies, and almost all of them were ordinary. Almost. A microscopic error, one that slipped past inspectors, machines, and quality control, created a coin so rare, so desirable, that elite collectors now compete fiercely to own it. And yes, the confirmed market valuation has reached $844,000. For a penny. That's not a typo. That's reality. Now here's where the fear kicks in, because fear is honest. Most people never check their coins. They assume, they dismiss, they delay. And while they delay, opportunity disappears. Let me be blunt. Valuable coins are not waiting forever. They are being discovered, certified, sold, and locked into private collections every single year. Once they're gone, they're gone. The question isn't, are there rare pennies out there? The real question is, will you recognize one before someone else does? Because someone else is looking right now. The 2017 D penny became legendary because of a dramatic minting error, an error so clean, so unusual, and so statistically rare that experts initially doubted it could exist. Yet it does. Coins with dramatic die errors, doubling anomalies, or strike irregularities from this year have surfaced and stunned the numismatic world. The demand exploded not because of hype, but because of verified scarcity. High-grade examples authenticated by top grading services entered private auctions, and bidding wars followed. This is how markets move when confidence meets rarity. And this is why serious buyers are paying life-changing money. Let's pause for a pattern interrupt. Be honest, how many pennies are in your house right now? 10? 100? 1,000? Funny how the smallest coin in your pocket suddenly feels a little heavier, isn't it? That's the moment awareness begins. Wealth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. This is Act 2 of the story, The Awakening. Across the United States, ordinary people began checking their change. Retirees. Working professionals. Families downsizing old homes. People who never considered themselves collectors. And some of them discovered that what they thought was spare change was actually financial leverage. Certified examples of the 2017 D-era penny didn't just sell, they attracted elite buyers, investors, and institutions who understand one thing very well: when supply is limited and demand is global, price becomes secondary. Here's what makes this moment urgent. The coin market is not static. It is accelerating. More people are searching. More coins are being submitted for grading. And the window of opportunity is narrowing. Coins in pristine condition command the highest prices, and condition is something time does not forgive. Every year that passes increases wear, damage, and loss. The smartest sellers act before the crowd fully wakes up. That's not pessimism, that's strategy. Now let's shift into Act 3, the transformation. This is where possibility becomes action. The people who benefit most from rare coins aren't gamblers. They are decision makers. They understand value, timing, and confidence. Selling a high-value penny isn't about luck, it's about positioning. Knowing what you have. Knowing who wants it. And knowing when demand is peaking. Right now, rare modern era coins are among the hottest segments in the U.S. collector market, and the 2017 D Lincoln penny stands at the top of that list. Picture this outcome. A single verified coin turns into a funded retirement account. A mortgage paid off. A legacy investment for your family. Not because of speculation, but because of awareness. This is how wealth quietly transfers from the uninformed to the prepared. And the prepared always act early. Let me ask you one final question, and this one matters. If you already had something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to take control of that opportunity before it passes to someone else? Because history shows us one thing clearly: those who take rare coins seriously today are the ones telling the success stories tomorrow. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a penny, and realizing that this tiny copper coin could be worth $934,000. Not a lottery ticket. Not a stock tip. A single Lincoln penny. Now pause for a second. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Hundreds of thousands? Millions? And what if the one that could change everything already did, and you never noticed? That uncomfortable feeling in your chest right now, that's not coincidence. That's awareness waking up. This is not a fantasy story. This is about the 2020 D Lincoln 1 cent, minted in Denver, during one of the most chaotic years in American history. While the world was distracted, while markets crashed in fear-dominated headlines, something extraordinary slipped through the cracks of the U.S. Mint. A rare mint mark error, unnoticed at first, quietly entered circulation. And today, verified examples of this coin have reached a current market value of up to $934,000. Yes, you heard that right. 1 penny. Nearly $1 million. If that doesn't stop you mid-scroll, ask yourself, what will Act 1 begins with what everyone else missed. In 2020, the Denver Mint was operating under unprecedented pressure. Production was rushed. Staffing was strained. Quality control wasn't perfect, and that's when rare coin errors are born. A specific group of 2020 D Lincoln pennies escaped with a critical mint mark and strike anomaly, making them fundamentally different from ordinary cents. Most people treated them like spare change. A few collectors recognized the signs. And those few are no longer worrying about retirement. Now let me interrupt you for a moment. Be honest, if a penny fell on the ground right now, would you bend down to pick it up? Or would you laugh and walk away? That laugh could cost you a house, a car, your freedom. Funny how something so small can expose something so big, isn't it? What makes this coin so powerful isn't just rarity, it's demand. Serious collectors, private investors, and high-end auction houses are aggressively searching for authenticated examples. Why? Because this coin checks every box that creates explosive value: a modern date, a major mint, a documented error, limited surviving examples, and intense media attention within elite numismatic circles. This isn't an old dusty coin from the 1800s that nobody understands. This is a modern American penny, something people trust, recognize, and want. Act 2 is where reality hits and fear steps in. Because the most dangerous mistake isn't ignorance, it's delay. The window for finding these coins is closing. Every year, more are discovered, graded, and locked away in private collections. Once that happens, circulation dries up. Prices surge. And the opportunity disappears forever. Ask anyone who passed on Bitcoin at $100. Ask anyone who sold rare coins before certification. Regret is expensive. And it lasts longer than excitement. Here's the uncomfortable truth: most people who have handled a valuable coin never realized it. They spent it. They ignored it. They laughed at it. And someone else got rich. Don't let that be your story. Because if you're watching this, it means you already care about value, legacy, and financial control. You don't want just enough. You want options. Security. Power. Freedom. Another quick reset: what would change in your life if you woke up tomorrow knowing money was no longer a problem? No pressure. No panic. No fear of the future. Just choices. That's what rare coins represent, not luck, but leverage. Of the 2020 D Lincoln penny error has become one of the most talked about modern discoveries among serious collectors. Auction records show aggressive bidding. Private sales are happening quietly, off-market, between high-net-worth buyers. These are not impulse purchases. These are strategic acquisitions. When wealthy people move silently, it's usually because they know something the public doesn't or hasn't accepted yet. Act 3 is where urgency turns into action. This is the moment where stories split into two paths. One where someone keeps scrolling, shrugs, and forgets. And another where someone checks their change jar, their coin rolls, their inherited collection, and finds something extraordinary. The difference between those paths isn't intelligence. It's attention. Right now, somewhere in America, someone is unknowingly sitting on a 6-figure or 7-figure penny. And right now, someone else is actively hunting for it, with cash ready. That imbalance doesn't last. Markets correct. Opportunities close. And the people who act early are the ones who win quietly while everyone else asks, "How did I miss that?" This coin is not weak. It is not speculative hype. It is highly demanded, professionally graded, and backed by a collector market that has survived wars, recessions, and inflation. Rare coins don't disappear in hard times, they thrive. And the Lincoln penny, the most iconic coin in American history, carries emotional weight that investors understand deeply. So here's your final thought: wealth rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers. It hides in plain sight. It waits for people who are willing to look twice at what others overlook. That penny in your hand isn't small. It's a question, a test, and possibly your turning point.